We are getting new and updated polls, it seems like almost every week, related to the upcoming 2024 presidential election. And every new poll we see gets worse and worse for Joe Biden. I'm going to show you two clips. One of them is going to be from CNN and one of them is going to be from NBC. And if these two media organizations are willing to admit the disastrous polls that are coming out for Biden right now, you know it's seriously bad. Let's check it out.
How unusual is it for an incumbent president to be trailing at this point?
Yeah, me coming armed with facts and figures and historical pieces of data. I never do that, Paul. Never, ever, ever. But as a matter of fact, I have this one time anyway. Look, if you go back over the last 80 years, go all the way back to FDR, what do you see? You see there, in fact, have only been two incumbent presidents at this particular point in time who have actually trailed for re-election at this point since 1943. One of those, I think, is fairly familiar, given the last slide. That was Donald Trump back in 2020. He, of course, went on to lose. But Joe Biden is just the second president at this point to be trailing for re-election. The average incumbent, in fact, leads by a little bit more than 10 percentage points. So this is extremely unusual to find a president trailing by any margin, even one that's, say, 2 or 3 percentage points on average, as we saw in that first slide.
Okay, well, Biden just won 3 years ago. So what are the big reasons that he's now trailing?
So I don't really care to hear any more of this analysis or the annoying reporting that they do here on CNN. I was just really looking at the numbers themselves, and these are absolutely terrible numbers for Joe Biden. Now, they are saying that there's only two presidents who this has happened to, Joe Biden and Trump. Now, if you want to take that 2020 election stuff that they were pushing out as fact, you can go ahead and do that. But right now, I will tell you, in the last 80 years, there is nobody who has seen a decline the way Joe Biden is seeing a decline. CNN has their own thoughts on why this is happening, but we clearly know that this administration has been an absolute disaster. The economy's been a disaster. Inflation's a disaster. Energy independence is a disaster. Our trade agreements are disasters. The multiple wars we are now involved in, the amount of money that we are giving out overseas, our border is completely collapsing. Joe Biden basically has dementia at this point. Talk about age. I mean, forget age. The guy doesn't really even know where he is anymore. And everyone is very aware of this. Even though the media is trying to tell us it's not true, it's not real, we're not stupid. We can see it happening right in front of our eyes. And this is why this guy is just plummeting. If they actually put Joe Biden up against Trump in 2024, it will be a landslide. Trump will easily win, which makes me think that they are not actually going to do this. I think they're going to look for an opportune time to get Joe Biden out of there. They're going to try and tell him it's time for you to go. You need to leave. And they're going to bring in someone else. I don't know who it's going to be, but I have to think, because they already know. The writing's on the wall. They already know that this is not going to happen. Let me show you the next news clip and what they're talking about with these new polls.
The war between Israel and Hamas rages on. It is having a transformative impact in our politics. We have a brand new NBC News poll out this morning, which shows the toll it is taking on the president. I'm joined now by national political correspondent Steve Kornacki to take us through the numbers. Steve, some real stunning highlights here in this poll.
Absolutely, and I think you're right to set it up that way. What's happening in the Middle East, it really does seem to be connecting with what's happening domestically in our politics. Let's start with the bottom line here. President Biden, what is his job approval rating? We measure it now at 40%, with 57% disapproving. The significance, that is the lowest President Biden has ever measured in our poll in terms of job approval. And just look at the sea change from the start of this year. Remember, early this year, Democrats coming off a strong 2022 midterm. He was almost even. Now he's 17 points underwater on this question.
Significant dip there, Steve.
It is, and you can actually, if you take a look here by party, I think it's significant for two reasons. One, independents, obviously, more than 2 to 1
This independent number is massive. This is all you need to see. 63% disapprove and only 30% approve of him. That's everything you need to see from this poll right here. The other one that's pretty big is the Democrats, where you only have 77% of Democrats approving of Biden. That number should be much higher. There should be a lot more unity there.
You don't want to be there as an incumbent president, but I think equally significant, no surprise, 7% of Republicans approve of Joe Biden's job performance, but 3 times as many Democrats, 21%, that's more than 1 in 5, say they disapprove. You need much more unified support in your own party if you're going to have a successful re-election campaign. And we mentioned the drop in that approval rating and the connection to the Middle East, and here it is. On foreign policy, 33% approve of Joe Biden's job performance. Just in September, we asked the same question, and it was 41-53.
These numbers surprised our own pollsters, Steve, with one saying he cannot remember a time when a foreign entanglement that didn't involve U.S. troops had the capacity to transform the electorate. And that's not the case in this poll.
No, and go even a step further on this one. I think this jumps out at you, too. Overall, this is the handling of the Israel-Hamas war. And again, it kind of measures overall up with Biden's foreign policy.
Okay, I'm not going to listen to this anymore. These are really bad poll numbers for him. So they're talking about his foreign policy. Joe Biden has really terrible foreign policy. Now, in particular, we've done terrible with the Ukraine-Russia conflict, and now there's a lot of pushback with the Israel-Hamas conflict. In my opinion, Joe Biden handing over $100 billion of U.S. money to Ukraine that's never going to be paid back is an absolute mistake. And now you can see there's these younger groups that are disapproving of his foreign policy. I think this is primarily due to schools and universities that are pushing this idea that Hamas and the Palestinians are being unfairly treated by Israel without any real historical context. And I think they're seeing Joe Biden supporting Israel, and I think the younger group doesn't like that. So I'm not particularly down with why I think those younger groups are not approving of Joe Biden with the Israel-Hamas situation, although I don't approve of everything he's doing with that either. I think the United States is being far too aggressive in its approach right now with the Israel-Hamas war. It's unnecessarily so. Yes, the United States can put a presence out there. There's a number of things we can do to make sure that we keep as much peace in that area as we can and to keep other countries from getting involved, while at the same time trying to support Israel and trying to make sure that we don't have a humanitarian crisis on our hand. But I think that there is some war hawks in there who are trying to engage with Iran right now. I am definitely against that, and I think that Biden is pulling himself into that direction. But those who disapprove of Biden because he's not supporting Hamas or the Palestinians are fools. And I think we're seeing a lot of fools on this one. But his foreign policy still has been terrible, especially with Ukraine and Russia. But again, these polls are just terrible for him. There is no way this guy can win in 2024. It just can't happen. I mean, you're going to need so much ballot harvesting. They're going to have to change up the rules in these states again. I mean, they're going to have a new influx of COVID or something, or say we need to extend early voting, even double time or something like that. Like, they're going to have to come up with some crazy new rules so that people could just go around from apartment building to apartment building, like convincing people to give them ballots and then throwing them into these drop-off areas and maybe doing all kinds of other things. I mean, there's just no way. I mean, there's just no way this guy wins. So again, like I said, Trump is going up. It's going to be Trump and somebody, but will it be Joe Biden? Do you all, let me ask you, do you think Joe Biden is actually going to be the one running for the Democratic Party? Because I don't see it. I think they all know right now, and I think they're going to try to get rid of him, because if you put him up there, you lose. But if you bring someone else in, maybe you have a chance. Maybe. I don't know. What do you think? Leave your comment below. I'd love to hear about it. I'll catch you on the next one.